Yeah.
So as I was waiting for you to come on, I was telling everyone that it was my first storming event, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Like, I had heard about it and watched you guys do it last year, and it was just like so much excitement built up. And you know how when that happens and then it happens and you're like, no, that did not happen this time. I stayed
Yeah.
up. It was super exciting and I learned so much.
And
So,
everyone's still having their storming meetings now, and we're still getting like feedback, and everyone's really excited. And I think what happens is military spouses are so competitive anyway, like with themselves, like they just want to do a good job,
I
that
know.
they're like, oh no, why aren't you calling me back? I will stalk you until you call me back. And so it's really fun because, like, I think once everybody went through the training and they felt more confident, you can talk about this and tell us how you felt about the training, but I think once they felt more confident, then they went out there and, yes, if they got an office visit, they felt like that was an easy win. Yeah, I got to talk to my legislator, I got to talk to the staffers. But if they didn't get calls back, then they're like, wait a minute, you work for me, why aren't you calling me back? I have
Well,
something I need to tell you.
I told you when we were having our meeting yesterday that I hadn't heard back from anyone. Well, I got an email and I have a meeting on Friday. So I'm so excited, but you're right. There was definitely a sense of like, excuse me?
Right.
What?
And there's Lauren. Lauren's dropping in really quickly. We need to tell her that she needs to storm with us next year. We missed her this
Yes,
year.
Lauren, you were missed. You should have been there.
Especially as a Texan, she would have been great to storm the Texas delegation. But no, it was. I'm still hearing from everybody, and everybody, like, every time they get a meeting, they're like, yes. I mean, and they're indignant. They're like, it's about time they call me back. Like, they work for me. Like, they're my legend. They represent me. Why aren't they calling me back? And it's so fun because everybody went from being timid to now being like, just not assertive or aggressive, but just being like, hey, I have a right to contact these people. I have a right to expect that they contact me back. So
Well,
it's
and I love
cool.
Melissa too. What's great is that it kind of put a fire under her, not just for our own issues that we were storming about, but just, and I found this in myself when I was going through the legislators to see kind of what their platforms were and what committees and what they voted on. I saw openings to other things
That you
that
care
were
about.
separate that I care about that they also care about. And hi, Ebeth. So I think, and what's really great is that you have never said, listen, this training is only for us and we're doing this and it's all you and MSN as a whole want to empower military spouses wherever this path takes them. And I think that that is such a valuable resource to people, and we definitely had our Military Spouse Appreciation Day issues that we were really focusing on. But this is more about supporting military spouses in general. And I think the training was so valuable. And I'm no stranger to politics. I've been in politics, actively involved in politics since I was a teenager, you know, speaking in front of legislators at my state capitol. So as someone who was comfortable, there was still so much more I needed to learn.
Yeah.
So if you have no experience, this would have even been more valuable to you
I think our
because
committee did such a great job. Like, they each taught a little segment. So everything from working with media to speaking in sound bites to talking points about the issues to staying on point to finding legislators, researching legislators. They did such a great job of pulling together the day. And I was a little worried, so for those of you who don't know, we made the 2-hour training session mandatory for everyone. And 2 hours seems like such a long time, but it went by so quickly. And it was a
yes,
lot of information to get in 2 hours, and people had a ton of questions. And the great thing was they learned everything from, like, you know, the beginning to the end about follow-up. And so, there was nothing that you were left on your own to think about, like, unless, like, we gave you the guidelines and you just developed it and you just, personalize it to, your comfort zone. But, we don't leave you alone in that you're just like, well, they're just going to sign me up and I'm just going to go out there. Like, how's that going to work? No, we're going to handhold you through the first steps. And if you need more handholding, we're there for you. But at the same time, after the 2 hours, everybody was like raring to go. Then they just went.
yes.
And
And
then,
we also have in place a Facebook group that is still active for the Stormers.
Yeah.
So like Sue said, you know, this is a partnership, and this is a partnership that extends beyond the one day. But I want to focus back onto the training and the virtual aspect. Can you talk a little bit about what was surprising to you about how that went?
So I think the big surprise to me, first of all, you know, if people are familiar, we stormed the Hill last year in person, right? So we got a bunch of people, and we got a bunch of people who were in the DC area who drove up to DC to go up on Capitol Hill to visit with their legislators on the one day on Military Response Appreciation Day. So then we found out that the Hill was going to be closed that day. We were like, okay, well, we can either postpone storming or we can take it online. And so our team pivoted really quickly, and we decided to deliver it online. So then it became our responsibility to kind of deliver how we would figure out how we would deliver it online. And so we came up with this online training, and Melissa there is saying the training and support was amazing, comprehensive, and user friendly. I really appreciate that, Melissa. And of course you were part of that as well. You know, because like the participants, they're not just participants in terms of like just sitting back and taking in the information. They're also helping us build it and giving us the feedback. So it's very responsive, right? So it's not like, when we decided we were going to take it online, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to develop a 2-hour training session that we're just going to speak at them. So we're just going to speak at you guys, and we're not going to have any interaction. So it was a very interactive day. And that, I think that's what was surprising to me, was that one, that everybody pivoted quickly, and that two, delivering it online actually, I think, made it more powerful, because we were able to get people joining us from like, what was it, like over 10 different states.
Well, and that's what I was just looking down at. We had 17 states represented, wow. But many of the states like Virginia, Maryland had more than one stormer for them.
Yeah.
And then we had one international participant,
which is really cool. And when we say we have 17 states represented, that wasn't that we stormed 17 states. That means that the stormers stormed from 17 states, and we actually stormed almost all 50. No,
yes,
we did storm all 50 states.
I live in Virginia as a stormer, but I stormed Nevada and Georgia.
Yeah,
so
I think
we covered it.
I think we covered all 50 states and DC, so we didn't get to all the territories, but no, so that was really cool. That was an uptick from last year. So we had enough people. And the great thing was, the big surprise was that I don't think I realized how many people wanted to participate in storming who were not in DC or in the DC area. And so I think next year, even if we're going to storm in person, I anticipate we'll storm in person, we're still going to have this online component, because it was so powerful. And I think we'll stretch it to more than one day, to where the training takes place a week in advance. And then we'll have a morning and evening one to accommodate even more people. But everybody was so enthusiastic, and everybody, I think they were drawn by the issue, and so the issue brought them in. But I think they stayed because they love learning they love the training, they love the support, they love the community. Because as you mentioned, right now we have that Facebook group, and people are still posting there, asking questions like, hey, I can't get my legislator, I can't get my people to call me back. What did you guys do? And then people who are successful are going in there saying, hey, I sent a form letter, it didn't get anywhere, so I called the office, and the gouge says call the office. And so people are organically starting to share best practices, and it's so cool because it's kind of taken a life on its own. And then I think like the building blocks that we gave you guys and the training that we gave you, those principles, like you said, apply to any other issues that they want afterwards. Like we just asked, like while you're storming with us on Military Spouse Appreciation Day, we ask that you storm on our topics, that it doesn't get diluted, right?
Yes.
But then there's like 364 other days, right? So you can go and storm on any other issue, and the fundamentals of what we taught you still apply, which is great.
The virtual component was really great. It added an extra layer of, I don't want to say protection, but just like you felt a little safer rather than just feeling like you're flying out. And also just having so many people from everywhere. You're right. I didn't realize that was even a thing. Like, I'm just like, well, you just go in person and you go to their offices when they're there. But I'm like, oh, they have to go back to their homes at some point, right?
Yeah.
They work in the state that they represent a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So that's, of course, everyone should have that opportunity. So I'm looking forward to what will happen next year. So next I wanted to talk about something that was new this year for you guys, and it's the focus groups.
Yeah,
Kind of talk about how that ended up being probably one of your favorite parts of the day.
that was one of my favorite parts of the day because, when we had our first roundtable with the congressional staffers, they had specific questions about military spouses and military spouse experience that we weren't really prepared to answer because it wasn't within the scope of our white paper, but it was certainly within the scope of the topics we care about, like transition and military spouse entrepreneurship. And when I say we weren't prepared to answer them, they had specific questions about military spouse usage of SBA resources and the VBOX and such, and we had not ever tracked that. So we went back and we're like, we can actually form focus groups around these issues and then give the feedback. And so because it was virtual and because we selected the people for the focus group, so like if you were in transition, if you were in the transition focus group, we limited to people who were 2 years away from transition, like either 2 years leading into transition or 2 years past transition. And so their experience was very recent. And then we were actually able to get some people from the Guard. And we were actually able to get people who were medically retired, right? And so the perspectives were wide ranging, and the age represented was also diverse. And so that was really, really cool. And one of the things we found out was the experiences were different. So we walked in there thinking we knew what we were probably going to hear, and the experience was totally different. Like, it was really surprising, like the feedback we got and their experiences. And also because everybody lived in different states, we had like Louisiana, Tennessee, DC, Virginia, Maryland represented on the focus group, and then Nebraska as well. The experiences of those people transitioning out in different areas were different. And also, if you were medically retiring, it was different. And if you were from the Guard, it was different.
Yeah.
And so to hear all that in a very short period of time was very powerful.
Because you hear those stories. You hear those stories like going through military life of how things are different on your branch, on your base, whatever. But to hear them, like you said, so focus group, it was very impactful.
Yeah. And then also for the entrepreneurship one, the same, where we had people from different, like different service industries and different, like different kinds of businesses. And then we also made sure we had somebody who had moved their business overseas and back in the overseas again to give that perspective, since last year's white paper was about supporting military spouse entrepreneurship through PCS moves. And then like this year, it's also about supporting military spouses through overseas PCSs. We felt that perspective was really important. So we had actually several people who could provide that. And so it was, we got perspectives from people that we would not have gotten if we'd done the focus groups in person. So by doing them virtually, we were able to get a bigger range of experiences, and that was so powerful. And I think that is what made it the biggest surprise. The whole day was a very pleasant surprise. It was really interesting because we always close out the day, any event we have, with like a happy hour, just so that everybody can talk about like what happened that day, because everybody's on such a high and they want to talk about it, and they're not ready to go home yet, right? And they're not ready to go back to their lives. They really want to talk about this amazing thing they just went through. But we're like, well, we're doing it virtually. People are going to be sick of us. Nobody wants to meet. And they're like, we need to meet. We need to talk. So, and, we last minute put together a happy hour thinking no one's going to want to come. And, it was not as well attended as I think we would have if we'd been in person. But 10 people were there at the end of a very long day at 6 o'clock. And we just stayed for a couple hours and we got to know each other. And, everybody shared their experiences and their anxieties. And then, it was really, really cool. And it was actually a very uplifting day. Like, it could have been a big downer because it's Military Spouse Appreciation Day. None of us can get together with our friends. We can't go anywhere. So we can't even meet up for coffee. But it ended up being a really great day. And I think that was the biggest surprise, was we were able to engender that same feeling of camaraderie even online, which I didn't even know that could be accomplished. And so props to the committee, props to everyone, and props to our participants really for being open to it.
Go team.
Cool. Yeah, go team. It was great. It was awesome. I hope we get to do it again next year. We will do this again next year. We will add that virtual component to it because that was amazing.
Yeah. And now I'm more excited and less nervous about doing it in person now that I've done a virtual component.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if we got a lot of people to fly out here.
Yeah. No.
for
Because
that.
now they want to meet everybody.
Yes,
Yeah.
after having that virtual camaraderie, and if anybody's going to rock an online event, it's going to be military spouses.
Oh yeah.
We are used to just making friends
Adapting.
quickly.
Yeah. And I'd
So
love to hear from the people that were there. Like, you know, Melissa saying it was a great way to decompress. But I'd love to hear like from Melissa and whoever else was on there who attended. And Rihanna, that includes you. Like, what was your favorite part of the day?
golly, I don't know about you, Melissa, and anyone else who was watching that's been there, but I think it's really hard for me to pick a favorite part. I think there was so many amazing things, just learning from everyone else's experiences and thinking ahead to our own transition out. And it was really valuable to have another guard family there to kind of get that special camaraderie, because that's a whole nother level of
Yeah.
stuff. Um, and just, you know, being reinvigorated to become actively involved in civics and politics and things like that, you know, which is a passion of mine that I haven't really fed in a while. And so that was really amazing. Plus,
I think what we hear from a lot of people is that they didn't anticipate that they could plug in for such a short period of time and feel like they had so much impact. And so I think that's what we delivered really well. And I think that's what, I mean, honestly, I think that's what NMSN does really well, is like you could just plug in for the one day or a couple days and you can have this great big impact because you're adding your voice to many others. And so, you know, it's not, you know, a one person show. It's, you know, it's adding your voice to lots of other voices and you're all in it together. And so it's almost like you're joining this team. You're plugging in a very high level, meaning, you know, it's not just starting, you know, so it started and we built all the foundation for you and we've built all the trainings for you. And, you know, you're just able to come in, learn how to do it and then just go, you know, so it's kind of fun because it's a way to engage at a very high level with minimal investment, I think. And I think the investment was an investment in time to, you know, to submit an application to a storm and then to research your legislators. But then I think that's more of an investment in you because then you come out of it going, that was so easy. Like, why don't I know what committees they're on? Why don't I know the topics that they care about? Like, you know, I think once you learn that, you can't unlearn it. So now, anytime you have a topic you care about, you're going to go back and go, why isn't my guy voting on that? Or why isn't she voting on that? You know, so it's kind of cool.
It definitely was a rabbit hole of investigation, and I'm a researcher anyway. That's my thing. I love it. So I was definitely like spending like hours just on their websites, like reading all their vote. I mean, it was probably exactly what you were hoping every stormer was doing, just like this. I'm like trying to pay attention, but I'm also like, oh, they voted on this, which, you know, some random thing that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's just like this. But anyway, it was a great way to have Military Spouse Appreciation Day and to celebrate 10 years of NMSN.
Yeah, right?
10 years of impact. And that's what we're doing this month. So I think it's amazing.
It feels like it's 10 days, right? It feels like it went so fast, but then looking back at everything and how we've evolved and the people in the community, you know, it has to be at least 10. Because I think we started with like a couple hundred, and now we have like over 16,000 in the community.
I definitely wish that I had known about NMSN 10 years ago. I mean, I've barely been around, and it's had such an impact on me. So I don't know. We're going to be sharing some of our early newsletters. Double high fives for 10 years. Thanks, Melissa. We'll be sharing on our Facebook and Instagram a lot of our old newsletters and magazines that we've had out, so you can sort of see the progression of everything. Go back and look over the last couple months. We've been sharing a lot of stuff about impactful people.
And also the new video. Like we debuted it on Military Spouse Appreciation Day, but we wanted to take the occasion of our anniversary to kind of take a look back at military spouse employment, because I think a lot of people kind of focus on how far we have to go, but they sometimes forget how far we've come in a very short time. Like, you know, the military's been around a lot longer than military spouse employment issues have been. So it's like, this is still pretty recent. We're talking like, you know, up until 40 years ago, it didn't really hit, you know, like anybody's consciousness, right? And I mean, a lot of the big initiatives have really occurred in the last 2 decades. So it's a nice reminder of where we came from, and, you know, and a good look ahead to where we need to go. So please look at that video.
That's a great way to wrap up our live. You can actually watch that video on our YouTube, Facebook, but you can also watch it right here on Instagram, our IGTV. Go to our profile, click on that little TV, and spend 5 whole minutes of your day watching this really amazing video that was put together. And
Tessa did a great job. Tessa and Maggie, and they did a great job.
It's a great way to share that video online.
It's our heritage.
Yes.
It's our shared heritage. Like, this crosses all service branches, you know, all components. This is our military spouse heritage. It's kind of cool.
Well, thanks for joining us again today. We'll be back again for more lives coming up. We'll let you guys know when they're happening.
It's usually every Wednesday at 11:30. So unless that changes, join us.
Just write that down. Have that in the back of your head. And, you know, we'll post this live again for you guys to share with people. Join us over on Facebook for some conversation. Make sure you're following us on LinkedIn. You know, if you are a LinkedIn person, make sure you're following us and, you know, share
storm with us next year. Come storm with us next year. Learn more so you can come join us.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next week.